Hello, this is Ancient Art of Fishing, and today we're going to discuss early season gato fish. It's no longer early season, but sometimes, in late March, April, you're like, man, I really wish I can catch some gato fish, but the water is still cold, and they usually don't activate until the water is 50 degrees. But that's not actually true. There are specific spots where you can catch the whiskered fiends long before the water warms up. And we're going to talk about several of these points along different rivers. There's like one for each river, at least, and some lakes. So these are all places I've actually mentioned before in videos. So Lake Mendota, we're going to start with that because that's where I'm closest to. Now, Lake Mendota, you can actually catch them as soon as it's de-iced. And basically, early in the season, we're really talking about April because a lot of times Mendota doesn't de-ice until late March. So they're going to be at places where there's either point drop-offs or the 113 bridge area. So in terms of point drop-offs, Picnic Point. Now, Picnic Point's not along the path. It's at the actual point. You want to throw out at the far end of the point as far as you can. There's a huge drop-off at Picnic Point. You want to get around that drop-off area. You can probably throw out, it'll be 10, 20 feet of water, and catfish will actually bite there. I have caught them early in the season at Picnic Point. Now, regardless of any of these places, you're going to have to wait, and probably they won't bite up until around dusk, depending on the day still. But generally, none of these places are automatic. It's possible to catch gato fish early in the season at these places, where a lot of the other places, it's not really possible to actually catch them, because they kind of gather off points, off drop-offs, and in the pre-spawning stage area, even though they're not really going to spawn for a couple months. So Lake Mendota, you have Picnic Point. At the far end of the point, toss out as far as possible. And then you have Governor's Island. Governor's Island, there's several places on Governor's Island, actually, on the other side of the lake. It is on the north side. I tend to prefer kind of this offshoot area over here. There is a pretty big drop-off here, and you just toss out as far as possible. And they are actually really hungry around this area in maybe mid-April, early April, late April. Just in April, you want to pick a warm day in April. That's where they'll actually be out there, and they will actually be hungry. They'll pick up. It's okay to actually use worms at this point because the drums aren't out yet. Once the drums start coming out on Governor's Island, you don't want to use worms because the drums will pick up the worms. But generally, before the worms actually come out, before the drums actually come out, it's fine to use worms on it. And actually, I think worms might actually be the best bait early in the year. So toss out from this point right here, out as far as possible. You can also take Governor's Island around the loop and toss out right here. There's a little platform. You have to fish about 6-7 feet up at least. But on that platform, and I'm not really sure where you would actually stake the poles, so you might actually lose a pole if you do this. But there's a huge, huge drop off, right off the side right here, and you can actually catch gato fish right there. Although I don't fish right there for gato fish, because if I actually do, I'm probably going to lose one of my poles because I have nowhere to actually stake my pole. So Governor's Island, basically facing the lake, there's a big drop off right off the shore. You don't want to fish in the bays. You don't really want to fish in 3-foot bay or these bays early in the season because catfish don't really go that shallow in Mendota. So basically, Picnic Point, Governor's Island. Of course, you have the Highway 113 bridge, and people do actually catch them here pretty much right after ice out. The water is very, very deep right here. This is the pre-spawn staging area, even though they don't really spawn until May, June. As soon as March, April comes around, they will start flowing in here. Now, another noted area is basically heading into spawn, maybe in late April, early May. 6 Mile Creek, where it actually crosses County Road M, that's a pretty good fishing spot. It's just that they don't really curate that spot very much, and there's a lot of tall grass, so you might actually get some ticks if you go there. So that's why I don't actually fish that spot. But you can actually catch catfish there. Probably later on in the season, once they actually start swimming up for spawning. So the Highway 113 bridge, excellent area, but it is kind of full, so you have to get there early to get a spot. And of course, early in the season, on warm days, Cherokee Marsh is very, very shallow. And because it's very shallow, it warms up much, much faster. You'll want to use bigger baits in Cherokee Marsh because there's a lot of bullheads in there. But people have caught pretty big catfish in there early on in the season. And early on in the season, the seagrass hasn't really grown in yet, so you don't have to deal with that as much. But Cherokee Marsh, Cherokee Park, definitely possible to get some big catfish there early in the season, but only on warm days. Now, let's actually talk about Lake Wisconsin, the official Lake of Wisconsin, which is up here. Now, Lake Wisconsin, like early season, is more of like definitely more of boat, but there is one place, and one place I know of only. It's where I go a lot later in the season, and it's Merrimack Memorial Park. Now, Merrimack Memorial Park, there's a fishing platform here, and right off the platform, it drops off to like 20, 25 feet. And that kind of drop off, essentially basically guarantees that there's probably some catfish there early in the season. Catfish like deeper water when the water's like really this cold, but they really love drop-offs. So if you were going to fish for catfish early in the season in April, or like even early May, I think Merrimack Memorial is pretty much the only place you can actually go from shore. There's plenty of deep spots in the lake, but that is one of the deepest spots in the lake, and that is a good place to get some gato fish early season. Now the Sugar River, there is a place on the Sugar River I actually like early in the season, but it's kind of tricky because a lot of the best spots on the Sugar are actually closed from the first weekend in March until the first weekend in May for fish protection. Both the dams at Decatur and the spillway at Broadhead are actually closed for those 2 months, and for good reason. Fish want to spawn at that time. Gato fish don't really spawn at that time, but other fish do, and they want to actually protect those fish. Now, if we go to Broadhead and Decatur, basically you have Headgates Park. So what you would do is you would fish you have to stay at least 500 feet away from Decatur Dam and Broadhead Spillway downstream. It's basically like the mile between Decatur Dam and Headgates Park that you actually want to focus on. And generally you want to fish like this big bend right here. It's about a quarter of a mile from Decatur Dam, which is legal to fish at that time. And essentially you have to use worms. It's very hard to get bluegills around this area at this time. Use a big pole, throw out far as in the middle as possible. It's actually pretty deep on these big bends. And just wait until maybe like dusk, hopefully to get a catfish. It's really, really on and off here. It's probably not the best place, but I have caught catfish there very, very early in the season, as early as like late March after the thaw. Now, the problem with this is you're going to have to use worms, and there's a lot of suckers here at this time. So it's always problematic that a sucker will actually take your bait instead of a catfish. And suckers are very careful and picky at this time, so you might not even get the sucker, and they might just like steal your bait. So basically, like this area, there is catfish here. I have caught them very, very early in the season, but it is definitely on off. There's also this like weird spot in the woods that you have to like kind of go through the trees to go through. I have a video there, but you know, like on a warm day or a warm string of days in April, you can actually catch catfish there after dark. Now, right below the dam on Decatur Dam is a very good place, but you can't fish that from early March to early May, so that's not really an option. But some of these big bends where the river really widens out between Decatur and Broadhead, that's basically like decent area for like to catch a catfish or two early on in the season. Now, next we're going to look at the Yahara River. And the Yahara River, basically the area I like is Dunkirk. And Dunkirk is actually very good early season and late season. Dunkirk is right short of Stoughton, and for Dunkirk, I don't actually fish the area below the dam. I actually fish the area above the dam. Now, Dunkirk, surprisingly, actually isn't that great when it's really hot in the summer like right now, because it's full of turtles, and there doesn't seem to be as much catfish there. It's like a shallow, weedy type of place. But early in the season, on a string of warm days, as soon as the water reaches upper 40s, low 50s, catfish are definitely available there. The trick at that point is to actually catch bluegills there for bait, because there are a ton of bullheads there. And obviously, if you fish after dark, the bullheads are going to steal all your bait unless you get some cut bait or possibly live bluegill. There are bluegill there, but they're sometimes hard to catch early in the season. But if you have patience, if you wait until like, dusk or a little bit after dark, you'll probably get a catfish. And catfish there are fairly big. I haven't really tried fishing under the dam because I don't like the spot under the dam. It's like for one person, it's really narrow and you're fishing up. But at the mill pond, early and late in the season is where to actually fish Dunkirk for catfish. It's not really in the middle of the season like right now because there's so many turtles there and they just don't seem to be there all that often in the middle of the season. I guess it really depends on the day, but I haven't really had too much Honestly, like I have not had too much luck fishing Dunkirk Mill Pond like in like late May, June, July when it gets really, really hot. But early in the season, I have definitely caught some catfish at Dunkirk. On the Crawfish River, there's this place by there's actually on the Crawfish there's actually this place by Portland, and Portland is a very, very small town. Basically, if you go to Portland, keep on going this like going up this road, there's kind of like a little curve. There's kind of a little curve there, and essentially this place is kind of like this place is kind of like Dunkirk. Whereas like it's good early in the season and late in the season, but it's not really that great. Like it's really, really not that good like the rest of the season because there's so many turtles there and you'll lose a lot of bait. There are channels and flatheads there, but early in the season it's going to be channels. Flatheads don't activate until much later. So like basically you see this like parking lot, there's like a public area of land, public fishing spot. There's actually a sign that says public fishing spot here. And there's a small creek that comes in, but that's kind of irrelevant. Just this bend on the Crawfish. Pretty good area for early season gato fishing. Depends on the day, of course. Like early season, you always want to pick a warm day or a warm day in the middle of a string of warm days. If you pick a cold day, you're not going to catch anything. And it is kind of on and off early in the season. But these are some places where you can actually decently consistently hit catfish early in the season. And I'm talking more about April or very late March or April. Now, closer to that place, in the town of Marshall, you have the Mendota River. Now, the Mendota River I fish a lot in the summer. Riley, Depp, and Fireman's are awesome for catfish in the summer. But early in the summer, it's not. You don't want to go to Riley, Depp, and Fireman's Park. You actually want to go to this, like, look for this disc golf place on Canal Road. There's, like, at the disc golf place, there's, like, this little kind of parking lot here on Canal Road. And if you fish this area right here, use cut bait because there are a lot of bullheads there, and there are a lot of carp there too. If you use worms, you're going to get carp. Try to catch, like catching the bluegills is actually more challenging than catching the catfish this early in the season. But get a couple of bluegills there if you can. Throw them out towards kind of like this bushy area here, and at night you will catch catfish. And the thing is, you have to wait until nightfall. They're not going to hit early in the day. And that's true for a lot of these places early in the season, dusk or nightfall. On Mendota, they will actually hit midday, but like in other places, you have to wait till dusk or nightfall, and they will actually kind of gather in this area, and I've caught tons of them. Now, the ones in the Mendota aren't really that big. I think the biggest one I've caught in the Mendota is like 5-6 pounds here, but it's good to get some gato fish action. So that's about 10-15 places where you can actually catch gato fish in April. Or even late March, and I've caught catfish at all these places around that time. Like I said, it is on and off. It's not automatic. Sometimes you do have to wait long hours to catch catfish, but all these places I've mentioned, I've caught catfish of at least 5 pounds, and that's very, very early in the season. They're all channel cats. I have never caught a flathead that early in the season. You probably have to have a boat to catch flatheads because they're still in the deep holes at that time. But channels, they'll go to these like pre-spawn areas, or they'll go to like drop-offs, or they'll gather at shallower areas next to like areas where they would actually spawn. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys later.